I am here as a representative of the Visual Archiving Center of Narrative and Myth of the People, a collaborative effort that has been well underway for just about 2 years. This is embroidery that is a visual manifestation responding to the research of real-life narratives of Lafayette, Indiana residents. When looking for histories of people's lives, I continually find encased objects and textual documentation. This is a rendering of the prophet, who was a Native American spiritual leader in the Tippecanoe Battle of 1811. And there are some historians at Purdue University who are currently researching some of the conflicting records in regards to the Battle of Prophetstown. And this started for me to question, what is a real story? What is the truer story? What is the truer narrative? And what are the important parts? Thinking of every frame as its own narrative and the formula of a structure that each story can be broken down to, and how it can be interchangeable with people's lives, with vehicles, with houses, and with structures. So I began to be frustrated with being a maker and making these things that were in response to ideas, where the dialogue between me and you became just a physical manifestation of a one-dimensional idea. So we did this performance with a Ouija board, and it was somewhat of a joke to have this attempt to have conversations with people of the community with both past, present, and future. So we thought what we would be doing was be doing right by the people by communicating with ghosts. So the title of the group is actually a mouthful, obviously, but I wanted it to be clear with words. So we decided to provide a recursive index that invited you to share any story of your lives orally, and we can respond to it, or you can respond to it visually to add to our archive. You can participate in the execution yourself, or you can help us find somebody that would be appropriate to visually execute it. So this is the Moon Block building, which is on the east side of Indianapolis on 10th and Rural, where the participants and the occupants of this building are actually socially engaged in the environment. So I wanted to kind of reference some visual artists. If everybody knows, this is the Reichstag in Germany, where this is actually a phrase that was on the building in 1913 that is for the folk. So an artist named Hans Hock, who responded to it with rephrasing it and also embedding it in garden that was actually physically, literally sewn by people from all municipalities of Germany. So like literally defining what the folk actually is. So the tension between the artist and the people and the actual place redefined what the institution was and how we can redefine the institution. So this is a work by Jason Lazarus, who is a contemporary artist, and he's showing us the back of an Ad Reinhardt painting, which is something that is a privilege of us as viewers who we wouldn't normally be able to see. And this is something that the Visual Archiving Center would actually want to enter in the same way. And again, this is another documentation of local graffiti, which is another insight to neighborhoods that we wouldn't be able to see. So Indianapolis is probably still familiar with Fred Wilson. He was a visiting artist here who did something called mining the archives, where he went into the museum archives and would take two objects from the museum, putting them together, creating a dialogue, such as the silver next to the shackles of a chain of the slaves who would continually keep it polished so that we could actually see it in the present form today. So these are some, next slides are individual works that I've been doing, which is called the Reparley series or the Revisiting series. And I've been traveling from Chicago to Lafayette, Indiana to Indianapolis, Indiana continually. So I wanted to document them in a new way that was day or night or static or movement or figurative or structured or animated and etc. So during the day, some of these images are just plain images. And there's the route from Chicago to Indianapolis. But when transformed with lighting, they turn into an illusion of something that's more romantic or cinematic. And this next image is an image of a hotel in Hammond, Indiana, which is during the day. It looks very much like a hotel that is turned into Section 8 studios, apartments. But at night, again, it becomes a little bit more romantic. So this is an approach that the Visual Archiving Center would like to take. And then the interior of that lobby where it's the changes and the adaptations of the framework. And in my actual formula of the way that the structure is built, the adaptations are equivalent to it having a life of its own. So the next images are documentations of night from alleys in urban areas, from different angles and long exposures. These are terrible in the light. So there's something that's magnified when there's a photograph at night. It isn't what typically goes on in your scrapbook at home, but it's something that if you were to see it and for me to convey to you, you would probably appreciate it. I mean, how many people know that every fall, the firemen come in front of your house and let the fire hydrants let water out? So there's definitely an alchemical and seemingly staged kind of representation in some of these photographs and documentations. However, there is no alterations whatsoever. And this is the kind of approach that we would expect from the people of the community and the people that would be participating in the execution, and also the telling of the stories of their personal narratives. So the last image that I'm going to show you is actually a diagram of 50 years of space travel. And all the players, the characters, and the events that are now flattened and projected onto the screen are a visual map for us to absorb. In the Visual Archiving Center, we are wanting to take all of the organisms as narratives and parts as a readable and recursive and cooperative effort. Thank you.